Well, it is always great to be here in North Country. Who is enjoying the prime rib? Yes, so for those that don't know, I am Joe Pinion, that crazy kamikaze who quit his job at Newsmax to run for U.S. Senate against Charles Ellis Schumer in 2022. And I promised North Country then that if they were willing to lend their support to our fledgling campaign, to make a statement, to draw a line in the dust that the needs of New York would no longer be neglected, that I would never forget the efforts made on my behalf, and we would keep coming back and keep coming back. We have done, because it has never been more important to understand what is so critical about what it makes North Country so special. Everywhere we look, from Washington, D.C. to Albany here in New York, they have debased our sovereignty. They have debased what it means to be American. They have taken our Constitution and left it in tatters because they are trying to turn America into something it was never intended to be by embracing policies that never worked in the history of the world. And so everyone tells you that this is the most important election of our lifetimes, and it is true. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, why is it true? What exactly is at stake? And for me, when I look at the stakes from a 5,000-foot view and a 30,000-foot view, the answer is clear. That our American inheritance is on the line. That everything that defines North Country, families in places like Clinton County and Franklin County that have been in North Country so long it used to be Canada, that the values that define this special place, they are under attack because the people that hold power in Albany and down in D.C., they have no respect for the people that sit in this room. And so we must send a message that we will not be the generation that allows the flame of liberty to be extinguished on our watch. Because we are at one of those perennial crossroads in this country. You think of those timeless words by one Abraham Lincoln when he gave that Gettysburg Address 407 years ago, our fathers birthed on this continent a new nation. He's talking about an American inheritance. He's talking about this promise that we have made, that every single generation that follows us will be better off than what they actually inherit. And for me, when I look at the current state of affairs, we must realize that we are at another 407 years ago crossroads. You see, back in 1937, there was a man named Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He had just been re-elected to the presidency, and the first act of business for this new, cemented, liberal-leaning majority was to try and pack the Supreme Courts, the Supreme Court packing of 1937. And luckily, we had a citizenry that understood the dangers of that we should not be taking away the guardrails that allow us to make generational progress year after year. And so there is nothing new under the sun, because the bad ideas, they have come back with greater strength, with greater earnestness, with a greater fervent desire to subvert this country that we live. There was another thing that happened in 1937. There was a book that was published, one of my favorite books of all time, by a man named John Steinbeck. It was called Of Mice and Men. It's a story about two men, George, who was a smart man who wasn't educated, and Lenny, who was a challenged man who didn't know his own strength. Two men traveling from state to state, from town to town, from farm to farm, vagabonds trying to claim their American inheritance, trying to make the American dream real for themselves. But everywhere they went, there was Lenny, finding things that he thought were cute and purdy, and he was petting them and killing them. And it didn't matter how much George Bush tried to stop Lenny, he just kept killing the good things in his life. Dog after dog, town after town. And when I think of where we are today in this country, this bipartisan dysfunction that we face, I think of George and Lenny. I think of mice and men. I think of a Republican Party trying earnestly to encourage our neighbors on the other side of the aisle to their better angels, and watching as bit by bit everything they touch, they destroy, they kill, and they leave in tatters. We will not be the generation that allows the American dream to be destroyed on our watch. The North Country will not allow the values of this nation to be destroyed on their watch, and that is why we're here tonight. Not for the chicken, not for the prime rib, but to say with one voice, undeniably, the greatest threat to America is not Donald J. Trump. It is the Democratic Party that has driven us to the brink of World War III. And so these are the issues that we must be taking to the doorstep of every single person that we confront. That it is not about the Haitians eating the cats and eating the dogs. It is about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who apparently didn't know that the president of Haiti was about to get hit with 12 bullets, 2 to the head and 10 to the body, because they thought that what was happening in Haiti, the end of the corruption, probably wasn't so good for them. Probably wasn't in the interest of a party that watched Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton effectively rape and pillage that island for their own personal good. And now we have hundreds of thousands of Haitians here in America, not because Republicans don't want them here, but because Democrats have given them no other choice. When you look across North Country, you don't have to go far to see your American inheritance being forsaken. All you have to do is drive past the stewards. All you have to do is look at all the individuals who know concretely that they can no longer allow their children to go and hang out at the camp, can't allow their children to walk around the property because they don't know what danger lurks in those woods. The notion that you would have to choose between being charged as a criminal for defending life and limb, or allowing strangers to camp out on your porch, allow strangers to hide in your vehicles as if they are more entitled to your property than you are. When you have border security telling you that you can't even dig a ditch on your own property because then you have imperiled the lives of the people who have come to this country illegally as their first step on their journey to America on U.S. soil, and yet here we are with the Democratic Party that has bankrupted FEMA to help people that aren't even here legally, while our own Americans are quite literally holding on to everything that has been destroyed in the wake of Hurricane Helene. That is not America. That is not the America that was promised. That is why it is important to keep Clinton County red and ensure that every single Republican up and down the ballot, from New York down to Pennsylvania, remembers that Donald Trump is the only path that we have in this election. So I want you to understand what we can do here. You heard from Congresswoman Stefanik that Clinton County has this ebb and flow. Sometimes it is red, sometimes it goes a purplish, bluish haze. But if Clinton County is purple, then it just means that perhaps there are some people who have forgotten who they really are. I stand here, Joseph Pinion III, the man who was fortunate enough to be nominated for U.S. Senate by this party, by this county, the first person that looked like me ever nominated for U.S. Senate in the history of New York State, and it was the Republican Party that did that. And yet, at the same time, people forget that there is so much work that we have to do. That there are things that just transcend politics. My father, some of you know, Joseph Pinion Jr., he passed away earlier this year, actually on the night of the Iowa caucus. A man who was born in Louisiana, New Orleans to be specific, turned 18, couldn't register to vote, but could sign up for the United States Army, down in what remained the relics of the Jim Crow South. A man who escaped Hurricane Katrina on the back of a motorboat with the clothes on his back and a can with my grandfather's ashes, because it was the only thing he could grab, the only thing that meant so much to him. My grandfather, Joseph Pinion Sr., a longshoreman who was able to buy a home in a community where people that looked like us weren't even able to buy a home yet. Because the American dream, in spite of the hatred that lived in some people's hearts, was bigger than that evil. And we have always been able to transcend that pain and that evil, but now we have a different kind of evil. Those who say they want change, those who say they want justice, who have weaponized justice for their own aims, who have taken the letter of the law and they have stretched it beyond credulity. When you look at Jack Smith trying to repackage old crap as new crap, a day after J.D. Vance has wiped the floor with Governor Paw Patrol, because they know for a fact that they have no obligation, no fidelity to truth. Their only obligation is doing everything humanly possible to defeat Donald Trump. You know what we're up against. Scripture tells us, if you look at 1 Samuel, the time when you could find not a single blacksmith in all of Israel, because the Philistines knew that if you could equip God's chosen people with the tools they needed to thrive, that no weapon formed against them would prosper. And here we are again, a nation founded by God's providence, where individuals understand that they must deprive everyday Americans of the tools they need to remember who they are, that are going to Wikipedia and erasing history, that get on the news with a straight face and try to tell you that Kamala Harris was not the border czar, that she wasn't rated basically a more extreme version of Bernie Sanders, by people whose sole job was to tell people who the most liberal senators were. They will lie to you with a straight face to take everything that we hold dear. And so when you hear your neighbors talking about the shards of metal that have ended up in the bales of hay that have destroyed the livestock, when you hear about the people facing the Sophie's choice, do I give up the topsoil on the farm to be able to hold on to the deed? Do I face the reality that I might have to surrender the house that my family made a home for generations? These are the stakes. Our American inheritance is on the line. And if you remember what many people have heard me say before, that letter written by John Adams to his son, John Quincy Adams, the first father-son duo to ascend to the presidency, that powerful letter where he told his son in no uncertain terms, you come into life with advantages, come into life with advantages that will disgrace you if your success is mediocre. This is the advantage. The greatest home field advantage the world has ever seen, the United States of America. And as rockets are being fired into Israel by the leader in state-sponsored terrorism, because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris thought it would be a good job to lift the sanctions, to give them $6 billion in taxpayer funding, to allow them to have Iranian ghost ships ferrying illegal Russian oil from pillar to post, where Russia now imports more crude oil into China than the Saudi Arabians. You have to know this is failure by design. You have to know that these people hate America. You have to know that these people will ask for your vote and then destroy your existence. But we will not live on our knees anymore. As Abraham Lincoln told us, first we pray, then we stand up, then we shall save this country that we love. And so I want to close here because clearly there's gambling that needs to occur. The legal kind, lest, you know, Tish James try to cook up another cockamamie reason to try to put Republicans on trial. But let me just say this. It has been an honor to travel this state on behalf of Chairman Cox to support our candidates up and down the ballot, to remind people that they have a chance to have a choice, that we were a nation founded to escape tyranny of the king and we should never abide the tyranny of one party rule, that people like Kathy Hochul, that people like Kamala Harris, that they might check the right boxes, but those boxes are going to lead to a storm of despair. I don't want to hear about the tears of North Country anymore. North Country shall remember who they are. America shall remember who they are. And by the grace of God, by the will of the people, if we remember those timeless words, if my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I shall hear their cries from heaven, forgive their sins, and heal our land. We are called together for such a time as this. We're going to save our state. We're going to re-elect Donald J. Trump. We're going to save this nation. And we're going to hold every single person, including those 51 members of former U.S.